Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now, this is kind of a review, kind of not, more of a discussion about Stax headphones and headphones of the past, I suppose, really. It's a bit naughty me saying the best headphones in the world in the title, and I know that'll cause friction in the comments because everybody's got their own opinion on these things. There'll be models that I haven't mentioned and people get very angry about it. But I have actually been selling Stax for an awful long time and things have come and gone. I mean, there have been things like Jacqueline floats, which were amazing, but disappeared. There's been even Audio-Technica, they did an electrostatic at one point, which was really good. There's been things like Audeasy and all the usual things that people know about the new Focal Utopias, which are, I haven't heard actually, to be honest. So perhaps they're the best in the world. I don't know. But from my sort of experience of these things, because I have listened to a lot, nothing really comes close to Stax, I don't think. And I know if you go on Stax forums, there's a lot of angry people again, sort of saying that Stax energizers, because the Stax headphones need an energizer. They have their own little amplifier. Because they're electrostatic, they need a high voltage to excite little membranes that they have instead of coaxial drivers. They work in a completely different way, so they need their own amplifier. There's a whole thing on forums about the fact that the Stax energizers aren't very good, and there's all these other brands that are apparently better. A lot of these things are made in people's sheds. I mean, there are some proper companies doing it, but generally I still find that the Stax energizers seem to be the best solution. But anyway, that's me. Yeah, I mean, people will be sort of familiar with the sort of lambda range, which are the sort of rectangular, slightly odd-looking thing. I mean, obviously not, as just mentioned Jacqueline floats, not as odd looking as Jacqueline floats or that type of thing, because they were almost like a helmet with earphones in. So you get the quite big sort of electrostatic sort of driver in here, which is open at the front and at the back. So they're not a closed back headphone. You can hear quite a bit from these when they're actually playing. These are L700s, lambdas. There's about four models in the range. Three models in the range of the Lambda series, and these have been going for years in various forms, probably back to, I would guess, around 1990. I think it might be slightly earlier than that. There's been various derivatives of 404s and these, like I say, L700s, 404s, Novas. I can't remember any of the early ones, but they've been around a long time, and they're sort of a known favourite, really. Build quality always looks a bit iffy. I mean, but they're actually really well put together. But they're sort of quite spindly little arms on here. I've had very few people who actually broken these. To be fair, quite a lot of people look at these and say, "Well, I'm going to break those the first time I put them on." But no, they're actually very robust, and you can buy all the parts for them fairly easily, so it's not a problem. But I'm not here to talk about these. I'm here to talk about the new model, and I'm saying it's a new model. These were actually launched about a year ago. Let's put these out of the way. And it's the X9000. Now, above the Lambda series, there was always the 007, which is quite an old model now, which are almost a closed back design. They're not, but they're very closed in. Personally, I don't like 007s. I've never thought, I always thought the ones I've just shown you, which are a cheap F-phone, were better than 007s. I think they were more open. After the 007, which used to be the top range, they brought out a 009, which are superb. I mean, they really moved things forward. Very difficult to make, only made in small numbers. And then they were slightly tweaked, and then the 009S came out, which was a subtle but reasonable improvement. Now, they'd been the top range model for a good few years, actually. And it was always we were sort of waiting with bated breath to see when they were replaced. Now, Stax haven't replaced the 009Ss. They've brought in a model up here, way above in price, which kind of uses very similar technology, very similar way of thinking, but just taken to the nth degree. The drivers are much, much slimmer than the thinner material than before, so it's lighter and faster and all this sort of thing. And the build quality has taken a bit of a leap as well, because even the 009s were never they didn't particularly inspire confidence, really. I think, it's just the way they were, really. All the cost went into the drivers and all this sort of thing. Now, I'm sure somebody somewhere is looking at the screen saying, "Oh, but they're just Chinese now, aren't they?" Well, sort of. It's a bit like Volvo. I mean, I've got a new Volvo, and Volvo now owned by a Chinese group. I think it's Geely, isn't it? But it's still built in Gothenburg. Still, their designers, their whatever. It's just the financial backing has changed, and the same has happened with Stax. They're still a Japanese brand, but they've got more money now, and it shows in the 9000 because the actual fit and finish. I'll show you in a sec. They're there. The fit and finish is superb. I mean, they really have stepped things up. And I'll talk about the sound quality in a second. But firstly, let me just move the camera and show you the headphones. So this is my little test rig. Basically, I'm running these to sort of bed them in a little bit. That's my T8000 Energizer, and the headphones, actually, the X9000 headphone belong to a customer. He's ordered them in March, and they've just arrived. Partly because they're very, very labour intensive to build, and they can only build a very, very small number at a time. And the orders have been crazy for them. They're a bit like when the 009 came out. The waiting list is just huge at the moment because they can't make enough. I think the allocation for the UK was almost down into single figures, I think. There's very, very few coming through. So yeah, and like I say, these belong to a customer. Thanks, Don, for letting me try these first. He was, bless him, he was very, very keen for me to try these out and have a listen myself, because I've not actually heard a pair of these. I know the 009, the 009Ss really well, but I've never heard the 9000 because they're so short supply. They're so difficult to actually pin down. So yeah, here they are, and I'm giving them a little run just to run them in for him. I'm not going to take them off on camera because I want to be able to sort of hold these with two hands very carefully because they're not mine. So hopefully you can see enough with them stood on the Stax stand there. First thing I noticed is that the build is way better than a lot of the other models. I mean, like I said, the Lambdas, which are down here, yeah, okay, I mean, they're very functional and do the job, but they've, you know, certain aspects of them do feel quite flimsy. Like I say, they're not, but they do feel quite flimsy. Whereas the 9000s are very, very solid, very beautiful, well, sort of beautifully engineered almost, really, you could say. You've got really nice leather pads on there. There's like an outer grille on there to protect the sort of outer part of the electrostatic unit. Headbands are almost like a spring steel, and there's like a leather little headband on there as well. Removable cable on the 9000. That's something that's quite new to Stax. I mean, all the Mark II versions of the Lambdas have gone to removable cable. Whether or not other companies will come out with sort of better cables for Stax, I don't know. I think it's too small a market and too expensive a thing to fabricate, really, because it's very specific, and they would have to, you know, the moulding costs alone would be horrendous. So I can't imagine companies doing that particularly. So yeah, what do I think of the 9000s? Well, they're, to be honest, a bit shocking actually. And I know, like I said, I know the 009s really well, and they were a bit of a revelation when they came out. You're sort of hearing things on recordings that I'd never heard before. And these really have taken it another step. I've just had a few, believe it or not, I mean, just because I haven't got long to actually run these, I've just plugged them into a random CD player. I've got an Exposure CD player here. I've just connected in the Exposure and just grabbed a random selection of CDs, ran them quietly for a little bit, and I've just sat and listened to a few tracks on here, and it's crazy actually. I mean, I'll just go through a few. And you've probably seen this on sort of recommendations recently. The Melanie de Bassio. It's really almost disturbing because her voice comes out of nothing, and it's almost like she's just stood a few feet in front of you. Yeah, little bit unnerving, and there's things going on in the background that I've never heard before. The actual scale of it is surprising. The thing about the better Stax is that you don't get as much of this inside the head sort of feel. Particularly with this, it was a definite soundstage in front of me, plus things inside your head, things left, right, but then a soundstage as well. What else did I try? Oh, Johnny Cash. You can almost tell how many cigarettes he'd had that day. His voice was so crisp. And again, the acoustic. There's a track called, which one is it now? I can't remember which one it is now. I can't read it. There's a particular track on here which has got a very percussive, it's almost like somebody kicking the floor. And instead of that just being lost in the mix, it was obviously there was somebody at the back of the studio who's like, he's obviously sitting in a room with guitar singing, and way behind him somewhere in the room, there's somebody doing this percussive sound. Never noticed that before. Never sort of really noticed it. And then I did a bit with the slightly crazy Jim White on Wrong Eyed Jesus. Partly put this on. I did sort of pick this up for a reason, because there's a track on this called Word Mule, which I wouldn't say is a particularly great track, but it's sort of cello, double bass, bass, kick, drum, and his sort of very gravelly voice all mushed in together, and very few sources or systems handle that. It just sounds like a noise. On the 9000s, it was everything was separated out: double bass, the cello, all these different noises were all separated out, all making sense. And it's the first time I've actually listened to that track all the way through, because generally I put it on thinking, well, it's very impressive, but no, I've had enough of it now. But yeah, with the 9000s, it really came alive. That. What else to listen to? Oh yeah, the Road to Nowhere, which last track on here. Road to Heaven, Road That Leads to Heaven, even. Beautiful. That again, there's I think cello on that. And the string tone, that's something that electrostatics are very good at. The string tone was, okay, I'm going to use the word unnerving again, unnervingly realistic on these. Much more so than I remember on things like 009s. So, yeah, I'm bowled over, to be honest, with these. I think yes, they're expensive, and I'll talk about this price in a second, actually, because you have to think about these things relative to what else is out there, really. Let me just turn the camera around. So yeah, really impressed with these. I mean, I love Stax, and I think electrostatics really have got this sort of uncanny ability to pull detail out of recordings. I mean, I think that's what they're really good at. You hear things you've never heard before. And in the sort of bass end of things, because they define the start and the end of a bass note and the texture within, the music just sounds more enjoyable. There's something, it just lifts the performance of anything you listen to. And at the top of the tree, the X9000 is just the best of all of them at it. And I've never heard anything like it, really. I mean, obviously, I'm a Stax dealer. I mean, people say, of course he's saying that. But I sell Stax because they're wonderful. I don't, it isn't the other way around. I'm not sort of saying they're wonderful because I sell Stax. That's not really how I work. The big question now is, though, how much are they? And this is where people are really going to start shouting at the screen, and they'll be in the comments like this. The headphone and the Energizer, which you sort of buy, you need the two things together, obviously, is just short of £10,000. You can have these with a lesser Energizer. You probably wouldn't, because I think the top headphone with top Energizer is kind of the way you would go, really. Yes, it's a lot of money, but if you actually try and quantify that, if you try and think of how would I get that kind of performance from an amplifier and speakers, it's going to cost you more. It really is going to cost you more. I was trying to think of something which would give a similar feel to this. And there's 10,000, you'd be struggling. You would be struggling to recreate that level of quality somehow in the actual presentation. I mean, speakers have got all sorts of things they've got to overcome. They've got to overcome room acoustics. They've got to overcome, positioning and all this sort of thing. Whereas headphones, it's all fixed. Now, whether or not you like the presentation of headphones, I mean, that's the big thing. Some people just don't get on with them. I'm not a big headphone fan, but I can appreciate what they're doing. I don't like the sort of restriction of your sort of senses by closing over your ears like that. I struggle with it a little bit, but I can still appreciate how good these things are. And they do present the music in a different way. I think Stax don't have this as much of the in-head thing that a lot of headphones generally have. There is more of a 3D-ness going on around you. Quite unnerving sometimes. You hear things sort of way over here in the background, sort of making you jump almost. I mean, that was the Melanie Debasia. That recording was like that. There was things going all around you. Never heard it like that before. I've heard it on 009s, and I don't remember it being like that. So anyway, yes, recommended. yes, they're expensive, but if you've got the money for that sort of, for that sort of level of equipment, and you want to get the best there is, they're here. Okay, like I said, it's all personal. It's all personal views here, but in my opinion, these are the best around. I don't think there's anything else out there that's going to come close. I'll end it there. The comments should be quite amusing on this one. I'm not going to read them because I never do now. Because. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Don for letting me listen to these. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed them. Boxing them up now and getting them ready for you. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like, and I'll see you in a future video. Thanks very much.